Wasn't expecting that to start the day. Came out the hostel, walked up the road, not 25-30 meters, and there was an old guy passed out on the side of the road. Well, not passed out, he was awake, shivering, super cold. Not sure if he was drunk or fell over or whatever, but he said he'd been there all night. Called an ambulance, and yeah, they've just picked him up. Hopefully he's going to be okay. Yeah, it's quite a way to start the morning. And then now moving on to the moorland, the start of the moorland part of the hike, which is probably what I'm fretting most. Not sure if this is going to be doable in winter, and after yesterday where I just had 12 hours of heavy rain, so gonna see see how far we get. If not possible, then gave it a good try, at least. But yeah. Whew. Right. It was pretty boggy, and yeah, that's not what I'm here for. It's a beautiful hike, for the most part, but in my opinion, pretty limited in terms of photographic potential. That's really what I'm here for. So I'm actually going to call it here and head back up to Burrow, and yeah, it's a good 70 kilometers or so, but that's going to be it for me for this particular hike. So I thought I'd talk through some of my resources and some of the sort of logistics and planning behind the hike, just in case you're wanting to go and do some of the Hebridean way yourself. And then also over on Instagram, I asked if anyone had any questions about hiking and photography. So I'm going to get to a few of those questions and try and answer those for you here today. So the
the main resource that I use for planning most of my hiking in Scotland is a website called Walk Highlands, which I can show you a little bit of it here. So especially for the Hebridean Way and a lot of the long distance hikes in Scotland, they've got great pages. You can go into each of the stages. They've got fantastic walk descriptions, and then you can also look at a proper map, and it sort of gives you the OS maps, which is the mapping software that I use for navigation. And Walk Highlands links up to that and gives you the exact route. They also have a phone app, which is really good. You can download offline maps and use your phone's GPS, and it tracks you along if you don't want to have pay for the OS, because OS Maps is a paid service, whereas Walk Highlands, completely free. So talking about planning and logistics, the original plan was to do the full 280 kilometers, and part of the reason that I didn't do that in the end was because it was winter, and the rains came, and it just basically became not feasible. I was walking in sort of shin deep bog for quite a while there, and a lot of the time also I didn't feel particularly inspired to make photographs, and part of that is because you're walking through farmland. So for me, I tried to not include man-made objects in my photography, but for a lot of you that might be something that you're perfectly fine with, and I think you might find a lot more potential there than I did. You know, potentially using leading lines of fences running into lochs and things like that. For me, I'm sort of looking for more of that wilderness feeling, which I didn't find in this section of the Hebway. So a lot of my photographs were pointing out to sea, looking west, and shooting some of the intimate scenes that I found on the beaches. So bearing all that in mind, I would definitely recommend you look at maybe more of a summer or autumn hike, something in the sort of between May and September time. That's going to be the driest and the best conditions if you're wanting to do the full Hebway walk, or for that matter, probably most of the other long distance hikes in Scotland. So with a bit of the sort of logistics out the way, I thought I'd go ahead and answer a few of your questions that you asked. So the first question is, how do you proportion your time between artistic freedom and getting the journey done? And this was really sort of the fundamental problem of through hiking, which is sort of at its core moving from place A to place B, and landscape photography. And the way I usually practice landscape photography is to go to a single place and spend a lot of time in that one location. So for me, it was sort of quite a big shift in how I had to approach it mentally. My sort of goal going in was basically, if anything caught my attention, I would stop and commit to photographing that, no matter what the time was, and really just not think about if I needed to later in the day hike in the dark, for instance. That was basically hiking in winter. The other thing that you come up against is shorter daylight hours. So it was about 8:30 until maybe 4 you had daylight. So pretty short days, and if you're trying to cover, say, 25 kilometers, most of your day is going to be spent walking. So that just means getting up before it's light and going to bed or basically arriving at camp rather when it's getting dark, which I was perfectly happy to do. Make the most of the whole day, and yeah, I think if you're hiking during the summer, it becomes even less of a problem, because there's sort of 16 plus hours of daylight. So yeah, really, if you're out there for photography, it's all about committing to anything that catches your attention, make a photograph of it, because that's what you're there for. I got a question here about when am I going to shoot that 4x5 film camera again. I'm planning on trying to get it back out to South Africa. I think that's where it's suited best for me. It doesn't work for me up in Scotland with the crazy winds that we get. So maybe more on that soon in the future. But yeah, we'll see. Doesn't really lend itself to long distance hiking just with the weight and the bulk. But one question about how do I keep my batteries charged. So this is what I carried. This is a 20,000 milliamp hour little battery bank. And along with that, I also had a USB-C wall plug. So this is sort of one of the smallest, lightest ones that I could find. And I'll have links to those and everything down in the description below. You can go check that out. But the 20,000 was plenty, basically between my main camera, vlogging camera, and my phone for navigation. And then day sort of 4, I was able to get to a hostel and then charge things up at a wall. So the 20,000 was more than enough. I didn't actually end up needing nearly that much. I also carried around a bunch of spare batteries, so I had 2 spare for my vlogging camera, and then I had 4 spare for the Canon R5, which was probably overkill. But hey, if I've got the batteries, I might as well take them just in case. I got one question about, without money or time being a factor, where would you be most interested in exploring to photograph? So I'm really happy revisiting a lot of the locations that I've been photographing over the last few years. So that's out in South Africa and of course up in Scotland. Every time I go back, I'm finding new spots, new nooks, and of course I'm changing as an artist, sort of developing more of my color side of the portfolio. So those things basically open up new opportunities when I'm revisiting these landscapes. Maybe a bit of a cop-out of an answer, but I'm really happy revisiting these spots that I'm currently photographing. If I had to go somewhere new, then I would probably want to go somewhere like Chile or Argentina. And maybe in the European side, I'd love to get out to Norway and explore some of the fjords and some more wintry landscapes. So next question, what would you say your keeper rate is for shots taken versus edited versus shared? For this particular hike, as I mentioned, it wasn't that productive photographically. So I think I only took about 150 frames in total. And I'd say one of those was a portfolio shot. I think overall that was split about 10 or 12 different compositions, different scenes. Obviously I show more than that in some of these videos because I need to produce some content to make the videos interesting. But I don't really view all of the images that I display in my videos as portfolio shots. So what you see on my website, for instance, is my portfolio. Instagram is also closer to portfolio. I'll probably share 25% or 30% more photographs there, maybe some that aren't sort of in my final portfolio. But yeah, that's probably my balance there for through hiking. I think, depending on location, going out to Drakensberg in March and again in November, hopefully. I think in that sort of location, I'm going to come away with a lot more keepers, just because the location is that much more dramatic. For non-through hikes though, say I'm going to the Isle of Paris for 3 or 4 weeks, I could shoot anywhere up to, 3,000-4,000 photographs, and I'd probably come away with 100 selects and then whittle that down to about 30 keepers. So 3,000 down to 30 is probably about my ratio that I tend to find. Sometimes I'm much more productive. I went out to Glenafric recently and I shot, let's see here, I'm looking at my Lightroom catalog. I shot 595 frames and ended up with 27 keepers. So really depends on the conditions and how long I'm spending in the location, how well I know that location comes in as well. If it's somewhere I'm going for the first time, I tend to take a little bit to get into it. But otherwise, yeah, I'd probably say 100 to 1. So the last question was about a post-hike meal treat, and I'd probably say the nutrition side of things I was really happy with. I took about, I think it was 2,500 calories a day, and obviously hiking for 8 days, sort of have to be quite dialed in with that or else it can weigh a lot. You're looking at 2.5-3 kilos of food if you got it really dialed in, but that can easily balloon up to 5 kilos if you're not careful. So in terms of actual treats, the only thing I really had with me was Tailwind nutrition packets, which had the chocolate flavor, so it felt like a bit of a treat after a long day on the trail. But otherwise I kept it pretty basic to sort of some dark chocolate and yeah, some sort of protein nut bars, health bars kind of thing. No sweet treats, as it were, although I think that might be something I change. I think it might be worth taking some sweet treats just for the sort of mental boost that brings. Right, so I'm going to wrap things up there. Thank you very much for watching this video, and there's going to be a few more like this in the future, so please do consider subscribing down below. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.